Hey and namaste everyone. How are you all doing today? Well, the subject I'm going to talk about is why do we say and do hurtful things to one another? I've actually written a blog about this, which you can read at www.calloftheinnervoice.com. My name is Jacqueline van der Pooy, and this is the second of my videos that I've recently started doing. So let's dive right in. So basically, I chose to speak about this because I think it's quite a subject which is important, because we tend to say and do hurtful things to each other all the time, right? If you look at the world, look at the state of the world, we're constantly doing hurtful things, saying hurtful things to one another. We're constantly being triggered by the other. We're constantly fighting with each other. And we may ask ourselves why. Why is this the situation? Why are we constantly fighting with each other? Why are we constantly saying and doing hurtful things to each other? How is it that we can have somebody who is like a really, really close friend or a family member one day, and the next day we're kind of fighting with each other or hurting each other, saying horrible words to each other, trying to get revenge from each other? This is a pattern that just keeps repeating itself and repeating itself over and over and over again. And I thought I would actually talk a little bit about this. And the influence for this, the stimulation that made me want to write the blog in the first place, was I watched a program on Netflix. That program was called Cheer. Some of you may have seen it. And the part that I found interesting was that one of the cheerleaders, he was an old cheerleader, had had a lot of success with the team and everything else. Suddenly he decided that he was going to start bad-mouthing his coach, and he chose Instagram to do it. And that kind of made me think, made me ask the question, why do we do this? What is it that's so terrible that we do to each other that make us want to hurt each other, and in a very, very public forum? Well, the conclusion I came to is really the reason why I wanted to write more about it. And I think it boils down to the fact that we get hurt. We get hurt. And a lot of the time, the hurt that we feel, it may be, when we look from the outside in, it may look like it's something very, very small that has caused us to become hurt. Because in fact, in this program, the reason why this man chose to badmouth his coach was because he felt she hadn't listened to him. So when you're looking at this, and you're thinking, you're bad-mouthing somebody because they didn't listen to you, you might think that that cause is very, very small or very trivial. But the point is that we can't trivialize anyone's cause. We can't trivialize the reason why anyone does what they do. We can't trivialize it, because for one person, something like not being listened to is very, very small and has no impact whatsoever. But for somebody else, not being listened to can be very, very serious and can cause them a lot of upset. It can cause them heartache. It can cause them all sorts of problems. Okay, so we cannot say that something is very small and unimportant, because it's very, very individual and it's different for every single person. Okay, so the point here about this conversation is not to trivialize the cause, not to trivialize anyone's cause whatsoever. The point of this conversation is just to highlight and to say, what are the reasons that cause us to do those things that we do. What I said just now is that it boils down to hurt. At least that's what I think. So how is it that we get hurt, and why is it that when we get hurt, we want to lash out, we want to do something in return? Well, I think hurt is very, very individual. It's difficult to categorize. It's difficult to try to say that, this is a big hurt and this is a small hurt, because we can't do that, because it's so individual. Okay? And because of that nature, the fact that it's so difficult to categorize and it's so individual, it means that we cannot just, push aside what somebody feels is hurtful to them. We have to listen. We have to take into account. We have to, give space to what that person is saying. And ultimately, why do we get hurt? What is it that is in us that gets hurt? And I think, again, this boils down to our egos. Boils down to the ego. Ego is, that part of us that wants to protect us, wants to protect the images that we have built up about ourselves. It wants to protect who we think we are. It wants to protect our feelings. It wants to protect our perception of ourselves, our perception of the outside world, our belief systems. So the ego has a lot of impact in kind of influencing how we deal with situations on an everyday level. Okay? So when we're talking about being hurt, I think what it boils down to also is the fact that we, as human beings, when we grow up, as we grow up, we don't really ever fully deal with the hurts that we have inside of us. We don't fully deal with the hurts that we have as children, as teenagers, as young adults, as adults, whatever. As we progress through our lives, we don't really ever deal with the hurts that we've had in the past. And it's those hurts that we've had in the past that accumulate in our bodies, in different parts of our bodies, that cause us lots of different problems as we get older. So, for example, in this particular situation, for that young man, not feeling heard, not being listened to, was something very, very serious for him. So serious that it caused him to actually start speaking badly about his coach, somebody that had helped him through so many difficult situations, had given him so many different opportunities that he was actually quite indebted to. But the point is that she had hurt him, okay? And this hurt that he felt, maybe throughout his life, he had an accumulation of past situations where he felt that nobody was listening to him, that he felt he wasn't being heard, where he felt his voice was unimportant, okay? So when his coach came along and gave him that same sort of treatment of not listening to him, it triggered all those part hurts that he had within him that had not been dealt with. And of course now, if you have one situation where you're not being heard, it doesn't make so much of a difference. But if you have 20, 30, 40 situations that have all accumulated in your body, when one person comes along and doesn't listen to you, then it becomes quite serious. And then you want to hurt that person back because you feel the whole brunt of that pain of not being listened to within yourself. So I think that's what it boils down to. It boils down to our accumulated hurts within our bodies that we haven't dealt with. And so when somebody comes along and does something, it triggers those hurts that are within us, and it triggers a response that's probably not positive. So in that case, we can maybe call it a reaction. It causes us to react. Okay, so when you have something you have a lot of these accumulated hurts, the triggers can be very, very small, but the reaction can be very, very huge. And the point is, when you're not dealing with these hurts, just keep accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. And we get to a situation where we are constantly being triggered. We're constantly getting upset. We're constantly getting angry. And when we get angry, when we get upset with somebody because they've said something to us or they've done something to us, our immediate reaction, which is the ego coming into play, wants to protect us by retaliating. Okay? It wants to protect that image that we have of ourselves, which means it has to retaliate. The ego cannot just sit back and take whatever has been given. The ego has to respond. It has to retaliate. It has to do something in return. Okay? And so this is what is partly the cause. This is what causes us to want to do something, to hurt somebody in return. Because they hurt us, our ego says, we can't take this. That's absolutely unacceptable. We have to do something in return. And then we jump up and we have to either say something bad in return or we have to do something bad in return. But that situation doesn't solve problems, doesn't solve our problems. All it does is it just helps our problems to accumulate. So then we have a situation where we have a lot of pain inside. Somebody has hurt us, we have retaliated, we've caused hurt to them. And the cycle just continues. And this is probably the cycle that we are in our lives here on earth. We are in the cycle of attack and retaliate. And it just keeps going on and on and on, and the situation doesn't get any better. Well, of course, we are all individuals. And as individuals, we all contribute to the larger scale trouble. We contribute to the larger scale environment that we're all a part of. We're all contributing our energies into the larger pot of energy that we all breathe and live in every day. So the energy that we're living in could be a positive energy. That means we're contributing positiveness into that sphere. But it could also be a negative situation, which means that we are also contributing negativity into that sphere. So how to change this constant pattern that just keeps happening over and over? As individuals, our job is to deal with ourselves. Our job is to deal with our own hurts, to deal with our pain, to deal with our trauma, to do everything we can to be better. We can't deal with anybody else's pain. We can't deal with anybody else's trauma or problems. Our job is really to deal with ourselves. And by dealing with ourselves, we are then contributing something else into the pot. We contribute something else into that pot of energy that we all breathe in every day. So how do we deal with our issues? How do we deal with the hurts that we have? Well, first of all, you have to come to terms with the fact that you have a lot of hurts. And how do you come to terms with that? Is by seeing how you're reacting or responding to certain situations. Are you quick to get angry? Are you quick to react in some way? Are you quick to want revenge? Are you quick to jump up and want to hurt somebody because they've said something that has got on your nerves or, upset you? If that's you, then you will know that you have a lot of hurts that haven't been dealt with, because it's only those hurts that are being triggered that's making you want to hurt back in return or to say something horrible to somebody in return. Those issues, as I said, if they're not dealt with, they just accumulate, and it becomes very easy for them to be triggered. Okay? So if you find that you're being triggered in certain situations, you know that you have undealt with hurts that you have to come to terms with. So how do you come to terms with that? Well, I think the best thing is by contemplation. Contemplate, meditate, and look within. The answers to your problems, the answers to the situations that you find yourself in, the difficult situations, all lie within you. You can only find out about those through contemplation, through meditation. So you can sit quietly with yourself, close your eyes, think about your life, think about your past, think about your childhood, think about the issues, think about things that are bothering you, that have been bothering you. Maybe you have a long-standing problem that's been bothering you for a long time, but you haven't had, the opportunity to deal with it. Look at that issue. What is it? Unravel it. Look at it from all the different angles. What could you have done better? What could somebody else have done better? What is it that they did that hurt you? What is it that you did that hurt them? You have to look at it from all the different angles. And then when you unpeeled it, when you've peeled it back, and you can see it in its rawness, and you can feel that raw energy, that raw pain, that's when you have the opportunity to sit with it and to feel it, to experience it. Okay? So hurt has a sensation, it has a feeling. Of course, hurt doesn't feel good. So if you're thinking about contemplating a particular situation and you start to feel pain somewhere in your body, that's your cue to know that hurt that you felt at that time is coming out, is being released, because now you are actually feeling the pain that was associated with that situation. So the way to come to terms with all of your hurt like this is to by systematically sitting with those issues, sitting with the pain, sitting with the memories, and allowing your body to fully experience that pain, that hurt. The more of that you can do, of course, you have to maybe cry. You have to cry it out. Maybe you have to scream it out. You have to, do whatever you have to do to get that pain out of your body. But once you've done that, once you've fully experienced that pain, it's gone. It's gone and it won't bother you again. Okay? And then step by step, you can just experience all the other situations that you haven't dealt with. So the more you start to do that, the more you'll start to see that actually you're becoming less triggered. When somebody says something horrible, it goes in, but you don't react. That situation is wonderful because it starts to help you to start to really know who you are. It will help you to have an idea of who you have been in the past. And maybe that person you were in the past you didn't like so much. But now you have an opportunity to create something totally new, to create a new version of yourself, a version that you like much, much more. And that version of yourself maybe is calmer, more relaxed, is happier, is less reactive, responds more, is more heartfelt, is more loving, more caring, and so on. All of those things start to come the more that you start to experience the past hurt, the more that you start to unravel your past and start to fully experience it, start to fully acknowledge it, give it space, give it time, give it that energy. Okay? Of course, everything I talk about is a process. And when I talk about it like this, it may sound like it's something that you can just do really, really easily and that it's, you solve the problem straight away. For some people, it's like that, absolutely. Some people, contemplate and meditate for a few hours and, solve a lot of their problems. But for the majority of us, we have to take the time, and it means hard work. But if you persevere and take all the steps, you will get there. You will get there, and you will get to a stage where, rather than reacting and wanting to say something hurtful to somebody in return because they have hurt your feelings, you'll start to feel a little bit sorry for them because you'll start to think, why is it that you have to say those things that you're saying? Why do you have to be nasty? It's just not necessary. You'll find ways to communicate your feelings in a much more productive way rather than saying something horrible, something nasty, something vicious or violent. That's going to help you with your communication across all spheres of your life. So I just want to say that, I work in the school, I'm a teacher, and every day I have to listen to kids saying horrible things to each other. And of course, whenever you say to them, why are you saying horrible things? The first thing they say is, oh, because he said that to me, or because she said that to me. And of course, that person said something horrible to them in the first place, caused them to react. So it starts from a very, very early age, this behaviour that we have to do something in return. It starts from a very, very young age, and it just continues and continues until when we get older, we don't even realise that we're doing it because it's so much a part of our nature. It's so much a part of who we are, who we've become over years and years. But it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. The more you start to become aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, the cause that's making you do what you're doing, you have much more potential to change what you're doing and to do something else in its place. So I hope that this talk has been interesting for you. I hope that it's giving you some tools to help you to not have to say or do something hurtful to somebody else because they have done it to you. That you now have the tools to be able to think about something else, doing something else, saying something else, being something else. Once again, my name is Jacqueline van der Pooy. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and I look forward to the next time. I thank you and namaste.